Hi, and welcome to another installment of Beginning Programming. Today we're going to start a multi-part series on how to develop a big enterprisey application. So the reason why we're doing this is that there are a lot of resources on the internet on how to use specific technologies, but I wanted to create one which combines all of these technologies in a big application, one you can start with, one you can extend, one you can test, one you can really use to build something production worthy. So I've split this tutorial in a few parts, and depending on how it goes, we'll see if we can add other parts to it. But the first part I wanted to start with is setting up Git and setting up a GitHub repository. After that, we're going to be looking at how to create a server in NodeJS, how to set up AngularJS, and how to test your application using Karma. So let's just dive in and see how it goes. The first thing we do is we create a GitHub account, if you want to use GitHub, that is. I really like it because it gives me a online repository where I can add my project, and GitHub allows me to actually work on projects with different people. So one of the things you do when you create an account is that you can create repositories. I'm going to call this education videos, and the description is going to be a sample enterprise application. So you can create this repository, and this is the URL to your online repository in GitHub. Now, when you install Git, especially on Windows, on Linux, and on Mac, you already have a bash prompt. But on Windows, you can opt to install this, and I really like it. I always use it to do my Git stuff. So once you're here, you can create a directory, and my directory is going to have the same name as my repository. You don't have to do that, but I really like keeping my naming conventions consistent. So we can go into this directory, and here we can initialize Git. Now before we continue, I want to say something about Git, and especially the way we're going to be working with all of these technologies in this video tutorial. I'm not going to spend a lot of time explaining all of these technologies because there are a lot of videos out there, really great videos on how to use the individual technologies. I'm going to focus on how to put all of these technologies together and create a big application with it. So along the way, of course, I will drop a few hints on how it works, but I will not be focusing on the individual technologies. So now we've initialized Git. This means that there is a Git database. You can't see it because it's a hidden file, but there's a flag for that. We can show all the hidden files, so all the dot directories and dot files, and we have a .git file. We can just go into this. If we unzip it, we can just look at it, and it's our Git database. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to add this remote that we created on GitHub. We're going to add that to our repository. So we can go git remote add and paste it in. Sorry, you need to give it a name. I'm going to give it origin. That seems to be a convention. I've also created projects where I called the remote GitHub, but origin seems to be the convention. So now that we have our Git set up, we're going to go to WebStorm, my favorite IDE for working with NodeJS and AngularJS, and we're going to create a project. I'm going to call it the same. It tells me that a directory already exists. Do I want to use this? Yes. Boom, there it is. And it has nothing inside of this. That is why it's still an empty directory. In the .git directory that we created, the database we instantiated has a dot in front of it and therefore is hidden. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add a git ignore file. And git ignore specifies everything that our Git repository should ignore. Now I'm going to use a git ignore generator. This is quite easy to use one. And we're going to add WebStorm to it, and this will be our basic git ignore file. It will ignore the .ide folder that WebStorm creates in our directory, and it will ignore a few other things as well. So now that we've added our git ignore file, we're going to add a readme.md file, which stands for markdown. And here we're going to add a title. And add a little description. And now that that is done, we are ready to push to our remote. So one of the things you want to do when using Git is you want to push and merge the smallest possible change set you can manage. So this one is the smallest one I think is useful. So we're going to commit this and call it initial commit. So when we look at this, we see that on our master branch we have 2 files that need to be added. So let's do that. The dot means add every file that still needs to be added. Actually every change. So we're going to commit this, call it initial commit, and now we're going to push to our origin and on the master branch. And it has pushed to our master branch. Now we can refresh this page and we can see that we have a pretty description here. That's the readme.md file, and we have the files pushed into our GitHub repository. Now, this was the initial setup of our Git repository. Git is our source control management system, and we're going to work from this Git repository onto the rest of our enterprise application. You need to have all your source code as safe as possible, and that's why I personally always start with our with my source control. Either it's Team Foundation Server, or Visual Source Save, or Mercurial, or Git, which is my personal favorite. It doesn't matter as long as you start from there, and then you can build the rest. This was the first part. In the next part we're going to be setting up a NodeJS server using Express. And our NodeJS server will serve the first page of our web application to the people using it. So I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye.